Hi everybody, it's Foxy, your drama teacher here. In today's video, we're going to be talking about everyone's favorite topic, script scoring. Now, what is script scoring, you may ask? Well, script scoring is the concept of going through a script and individually breaking down all of your specific acting tactics and acting motivations. It's this idea that you want to have such a well-rounded understanding of your character's objective about what they want to get out of that certain monologue or that certain passage, and so you break it down and you say either line by line or beat by beat, and you say that in this particular phrase the character is trying to do this, and then in this particular phrase the character changes their tactic a little bit and they try to do this. Why is this helpful? Why do I shove this concept down your throats all the time in class? It's because it works and it helps you get inside the head of your character and make sure that your acting choices are unique and that they stay consistent and that they stay varied enough to be entertaining to the audience. I've said this so many times, especially in other videos where I talk about your levels being up here, I talk about your levels being down here. When you score a script or score a monologue, it will help you make intentional and deliberate acting choices to help vary your acting skills, vary your acting levels, and keep your portrayal or keep your delivery engaging. And that's really what you want. You want the audience to stay engaged and you want them to be convinced that you are in fact going after what you are setting up to achieve in this passage or in this monologue. So to help us out today, I'm actually going to take you down to my computer and we're going to do some of this in real time. I'm going to show you a monologue and I'm going to show you how I would score it, and we'll do it all together. And when we're done, hopefully you can practice delivering this monologue yourself, and you can see by individually breaking down the different beats and trying different tactics with each one that your acting and your acting delivery will have a different level of engagement than it might have before. The end purpose and the end result of this is just to make you a better and a stronger actor. If you remember what I said from my sensory recollection video, that acting can be taught, and this is a very technical, very strategic, very direct, intentional way of helping you break down the mechanics of acting so that you can get better at it as you continue to practice. All right, let's go ahead and get started.
All right, so here we are at the monologue that we're going to use today. This is a monologue that takes place after the fairy tale Cinderella ends, and it is a monologue called The Stepsister Speaks Out, and I'm going to just read it for you without any sort of acting or any inflection whatsoever in my voice. We're just going to have some fun and read through how the stepsister really feels about this whole Cinderella situation. She says, "It isn't easy being the ugly stepsister. Everyone always feels sorry for poor little Cinderella, but what about me? I deserve a little sympathy too. Does my fairy godmother ever turn up with the magic wand? Does the prince ever dance with me at the ball? Not on your life. The best I can ever hope for with my pumpkins is a decent piece of pie. And as for the rats, well, rats are rats, with their sneaky eyes and their skinny tails nibbling and gnawing at the garbage. I never saw one yet who turned into a coachman. If you ask me, that Cinderella is weird. Certainly she isn't normal. Besides the fact that she has naturally curly hair and wears size 4.5 shoes, she's so good-natured it's downright sickening. If you had to dust and sweep and clean all day long, would you go around singing to birds? Of course you wouldn't. No sensible person would. A lot of people think I'm jealous of her. Maybe I am. And with good reason. I subsided on 700 calories a day for 3 whole weeks before the ball. I did my leg lift exercises faithfully. I got a perm and a facial and a manicure. I even bought a new gown. Blue velvet, designer label. I mean, I was ready. Princey, I thought to myself, here I come. And what happened? Little Cindy, who has never seen the inside of a health club in her life and who doesn't know the caloric difference between a carrot stick and a chocolate eclair, whips together a dress out of some old curtains from Walmart, waltzes off to the ball, and snags the prince. It isn't fair. It really isn't fair. All right, that's the monologue that we're going to be working with today. And we are going to score this monologue. And what I mean by scoring is that we're going to go through and we're going to decide where our acting choices are going to change. By doing this, we're going to identify what are called beats. And a beat does not refer to a musical beat. It actually comes from the Russian word bit. And when the Russian individual was trying to speak with an American accent, he, instead of saying the word bit, he said beat. And so that term, that phrase has just caught on for how we score a monologue. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to go through this monologue here, and we're going to decide where our acting choices naturally change and what the stepsister is trying to convey or trying to achieve in this monologue or during that particular beat. So what I've done is I put this monologue all on the left-hand column, and then I have a separate right-hand column here that I'm going to mark out with the tactics as we decide them. So I'll even go ahead and write that down, tactics. Okay, so let's begin at the beginning. It isn't easy being the ugly stepsister. Everyone always feels sorry for poor little Cinderella, but what about me? I deserve a little sympathy too. So I'm going to make the argument that this is our first tactic here, and that our beat change is going to occur right here. So we're going to go ahead and give this a number 1 because it's our first one. We're going to undo that automatic numbering. And then we're going to go ahead and highlight this text, and let's make it red. Then over here, we're going to say 1, undo automatic numbering. And what tactic do we think that the stepsister is using here for the audience? Let's see. She says, it isn't easy being the ugly stepsister. Everyone always feels so sorry for poor little Cinderella, but what about me? I deserve a little sympathy too. What is she doing there? What is the stepsister trying to achieve? What is her objective in this passage? So I'm going to go ahead and say that her tactic here is to explain. And to explain, that is not a fancy, that is not an elaborate or overly moving tactic, but maybe it's a good one to start with. So then we're going to put a 2 here, indicate that this is where our second tactic is going to take place. So then she says, does my fairy godmother ever turn up with the magic wand? Does the prince ever dance with me at the ball? Not on your life. So what are those right there? We'll highlight the 2 with it, and we'll make that blue. So number 2 here, we're going to say it's to question, because that series of lines is all about questions. And then she says here, the best I can ever hope for with pumpkins is a decent piece of pie. And as for rats, well, rats are rats. So I actually think that our third tactic is just this one single sentence here, because here she's talking about the best I can hope for with my pumpkins is a decent piece of pie. And as for rats, she is completely changing the subject here. So we'll keep this as its own separate tactic. And we'll make that, oh, that's too bright to see. We'll make that green. And 3. What is she doing here? The best I can hope for with my pumpkins is a decent piece of pie. She's being awful mopey here. And one thing I want to explain quickly before we get any further into the scoring is that you will notice that I am using 2 be verbs here. And one of the biggest things in scoring and in using tactics is that you want to act verbs. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, because when you're acting on stage, you might ask yourself, hey, wait a minute, like, don't I want to act emotionally? And the answer is yes, you do want to deliver a convincing emotional performance. But one philosophy, and the philosophy that comes from script scoring, is the idea that if you act the verb, if you question, if you explain, if you guilt, then the emotion and the correct emotion will follow. The idea here is to be consistent. And when you are acting verbs instead of relying on your emotion to drive a performance, that you will tend to be a lot more consistent than you would be if you relied on your emotion by itself. Okay, so back to the stepsister here. So she says the best I can hope for with my pumpkins is a decent piece of pie. There she is really trying to get some sympathy here. And so what kind of verb do we want to use for this? So I think here she's complaining, actually. So we're going to say to complain. And then she starts talking about the rats, and she goes, and as for rats, well, rats are rats with their sneaky eyes and their skinny tails nibbling and gnawing at the coachman. I never saw one yet who turned into a coachman. So what is she doing right there? Well, she is definitely doubting Cinderella's claim, I think, here. So we're going to say, and actually we're going to move this down so it's in the right area. Or to doubt. Because she's like, yeah, right, rats are rats. They're not coachmen. They're not anything fancy or special. All right, then we're going to move on. I'm down here a little bit, and she goes, if you ask me, that Cinderella is weird. She certainly isn't normal. So that, we're going to call that beat number 5. And I think that will end about here because, again, she's making a declaration that if you ask me, Cinderella is weird. She certainly isn't normal. And then she starts to explain why. So we're going to put beat 6 number here. Beat 6 number here. Number 6 beat here. So this one, we're going to color this one. I'm just going to I'll color it orange because we don't want to confuse it. It's not the same as this one here. So again, we're going to have it be orange. And it's beat number 5. So she said, if you ask me, that Cinderella is weird. Certainly she isn't normal. And what is the stepsister doing right there? Well, most certainly she is attacking Cinderella right there. And then besides the fact that she has naturally curly hair and wears size 4.5 shoe, she's so good natured that it's downright sickening. And not only, so she attacks Cinderella there, and then here we'll make this this rose plum purple color. And beat number 6, what is she doing here? Besides the fact that she has naturally curly hair and wears a size 4.5 shoe, she's so good natured, it's downright sickening. So she is still attacking Cinderella, I think, to a degree, but it's a little bit different. So I'm going to say, instead of attack, I'm going to say to scrutinize. Now we're getting into these fancier verbs here because you want to be very, very careful that you don't start repeating your tactics. If you think back to my 2-year-old tantrum example that I've given to you guys in class many, many times, and if you have no idea what I'm talking about, think to yourself about a 2-year-old's tantrum. Does a 2-year-old who's throwing a temper tantrum ever go back to the same tactic? If they want a cookie, they might ask for the cookie nicely. They might demand a cookie. They might start crying because they want the cookie. They might throw themselves on the ground and start rolling around when they're in full-blown tantrum mode. But when they're in full-blown tantrum mode, after asking nicely hasn't worked, after begging hasn't worked, after stammering doesn't work, then they go into full-blown tantrum mode. At any point, does that 2-year-old ever then calm back down and then go back to asking nicely again? No, by that point, they're so far gone, the tantrum has taken over them completely, and they don't go back and they don't repeat themselves. Acting a monologue is very much the same way. If you start going back to previous tactics, you're going to lose the audience because they'll get bored. But also think about it logically. If the stepsister, if she has an objective that she wants to achieve at the end of this monologue, let's say that her ultimate objective, and I'll put that up here so we can look at it, objective. If the objective of Cinderella's stepsister is to get sympathy from outsiders or make her story heard, if that's her objective, she is going to use this entire monologue to achieve that objective. If she achieved that objective after to explain and to question, like if by this point in the monologue, the audience was like, oh, yep, stepsister, I see what you're talking about. I agree with you. I understand. why would she keep babbling on for 4 more paragraphs? She wouldn't. She would stop. And so if at any point any one of these tactics works, the monologue would end. And so you have to figure out what tactic is she trying? Why aren't these tactics working? And then what happens afterwards. So I'm not going to do the entire monologue, but I am going to go a little bit further. So you can see a little bit of shift or a little bit of a change maybe in the stepsister's attitude. All right, so here she's attacking Cinderella, she's scrutinizing Cinderella, and then she says, if you had to dust and sweep and clean all day long, would you go around singing to birds? Of course not. No sensible person would. Okay, so we're going to give this a different color. Pick a color, any color. We'll give it a, no, that's too close. Let's see. We'll give it a teal color. We'll call this one number 7. All right, and what is Cinderella doing here? Or what is Cinderella's stepsister doing here? She says, if you had to dust and sweep and clean all day long, would you go around singing to birds? Of course you wouldn't. No sensible person would. So here she is to rationalize, because she attacked Cinderella, she was scrutinizing Cinderella, and now she's rationalizing it. She's saying, you know, Cinderella, she's crazy. And why is she crazy? Because would you do this? Of course you wouldn't. So now there's a complete major shift in the stepsister's tactics here. She says, a lot of people think I'm jealous of her. Maybe I am, and with good reason. Well, so we're just gonna go back to red because I'm running out of colors. So we'll call this tactic 8. And down here, what is the stepsister doing? What has happened at this point? Well, she says, a lot of people think I'm jealous of her. Maybe I am. She is admitting. She's admitting that she is jealous of Cinderella. And this is a major shift in the monologue up until this point, because she was complaining, she was doubting, she's attacking, scrutinizing, and now she's reflecting to admit or to, well, so I gave away the next one. She is admitting that she is jealous of Cinderella and why. And here, she subsisted on 700 calories a day. She got a perm, a facial, manicure. She bought a new gown, a designer label. We'll end that tactic right there, and we'll call that blue. We'll call this one tactic number 9. And here she is confessing everything that she's done, that she really did try very hard to do the right thing, to get ready for the ball the right way. And then Cinderella, just steps in and takes it away from her. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there. I think you've gotten the idea of exactly what I'm doing. But in any monologue, or even in a scene with one or more people, you can go through your lines and you can try to ask yourself, what is my character trying to achieve in this scene, in this monologue, in this passage? And what are the different tactics they try to achieve that objective? And I know words like objective and tactics, you hear me say all the time, but it's because if acting doesn't come naturally to you, if you don't feel like you have good instincts, if the concept of sensory recollection is difficult for you, break it down like this. Give it a more scientific approach where you are saying, okay, exactly in this sentence, in these 2 sentences, I am explaining. Then I'm going to go into questioning. Then I'm going to complain, and then I'm going to doubt, and then I'm going to attack. Then I'm going to scrutinize, and then I'm going to rationalize. Then I'm going to admit, and then I'm going to confess. Then you will see, just by implementing these different tactics, you will already automatically see your acting shift, and you will see the progression from each of these different things, one after another, and that will help give you a more versatile delivery of the monologue, which is really what you want. All right, everybody, I hope this was helpful, and I hope you all have a great day. Practice those monologues, get to scoring them. You will have lots of scoring assignments coming up, whether you're in theater 2, 3, or 4. I know you just can't wait because this is your absolute favorite. It will make you better, though, I promise. All right, guys, have a great day. Bye.